All right. So, welcome everyone. Today, we are privileged to have Dr. Donald Asher with us. He is an internationally recognized author and speaker on career and higher education topics. He's the author of 12 books in all, including books like Cracking the Hidden Job Market, The Overnight Resume, How to Get Any Job, and Who Gets Promoted. Many of you may know Dr. Don Asher from his talks on graduate school admissions, which he does each year for us in the fall. Um, Dr. Don Asher also has written numerous columns and contributions for magazines and newspapers across the US, including the Wall Street Journal, the San Francisco Chronicle, the National Business Employment Weekly, USA Today, Boston Globe, and many more. So, Don earned his PhD in human development from the Fielding Graduate University and also holds a master's in human and organizational systems from Fielding, a master's of human resources and organization development from the University of San Francisco, and a bachelor of arts in philosophy and religion from Reed College. He speaks at hundreds of universities every year, and we are very happy to have him here to speak with our UT students. So without further ado, Don, take it away.
Mary Beth, thank you so much. That was great. So I have 4 degrees, and I think that a lot of people would identify 3 of them as practical. So, they're business degrees and, how businesses are structured, how systems work, and how humans interact with organizational behavior. But I have this philosophy and religion degree, and people always ask me, how often do you use that philosophy and religion degree? And I always say the same thing. I use it all day, every day. So I'm a big believer in the liberal arts and sciences. I think that they are the foundation to thinking well. And if you can think well, then you can mold the world in the vision that you have. So they're extremely valuable degrees to have. And so I'm going to establish that today and talk about how you talk to employers to convince them of your abilities as well. So here we go. We'll just turn this on. And so we are going to have room for Q&A at the end. But what we're talking about today is, as Mary Beth said, selling your arts and sciences degree into the career marketplace. So, of course, the practical side of that is how do you land jobs and internships, majoring in French literature or laboratory physics? Okay. So who's in our audience today with UT? It's undergraduate and graduate students majoring in arts and sciences. And there's some alumni who've signed in as well. So it's mostly undergraduate students with some smattering of these other categories, and all are welcome. Okay. So the first thing I want to establish is that liberal arts and sciences majors are career ready. There's this idea that if you study these things, you're not really career ready, and that's totally false. And I'll prove that actually. And liberal arts and sciences majors, they do well in the career marketplace. Not only are they career ready, but they succeed well in their assignments and advance rapidly. So I think we need to take a look at what career ready actually means. Career ready is a bit of a buzzword over the last few years. They were identified as a mismatch between what college students were learning and what employers wanted them to be learning. And so career readiness became an issue. It was studied by NACE. NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And so they came up with this list of what is career ready. So these competencies, you don't need to read all this. I'll just read it aloud for you so you don't get lost on this great big handout. So career readiness is critical thinking and problem solving. Any good major should lead you to those skills. Oral and written communications, also a strong emphasis in liberal arts and sciences. Teamwork and collaboration, digital technology, by which they do not mean programming. They actually just mean, can you use Excel? Can you make a PowerPoint slide that works the way you want it to work? So digital technology does not mean programming. It means the kind of thing you should be able to do automatically. Leadership, have you had a chance to organize something and lead it? A lot of times that comes actually from activities rather than your major. Professionalism and work ethic, if you can prove that you have a habit of working hard, that's exactly what they're after. Career management, that's a little bit, you might just call that self-management. Do you have self-awareness? Do you have the ability to control your emotions and advance goals in a mature manner, working with yourself and with others? And then global and intercultural fluency, which the University of Tennessee takes pride in. One of the University of Tennessee's taglines is "Ready for the World." And so these competencies you have them with any major. So these are the things that are defined by career readiness. They're what employers say they want. And I assure you that liberal arts and sciences majors provide these skills. But what about recruiters? Are recruiters, when you go and talk to a recruiter, are they going to say, well, if you didn't major in engineering, I really don't have a spot for you? Well, it turns out that the number one recruiting category in the United States is any major at all. Okay. So that's from NACE, National Association of Colleges and Employers. So recruiters, not every recruiter is smart about the relationship between majors and opportunity, but it's certainly the norm and standard that they're supposed to meet. Okay, so here's a little bit more on recruiters. This is from a New York Times and Chronicle of Higher Education joint publication on colleges and career development. What about employers? What do they want? According to national surveys, they want to hire 22-year-olds who can write coherently, think creatively, and analyze quantitative data. They're perfectly happy to hire English or biology majors. So one of the main complaints, standing at 45%, that employers have about recent college graduates is that they cannot write. So if you'll use your liberal arts and sciences studies, your education, to learn how to write, it will give you a leg up on other people in the career marketplace, because employers say they want this and they're not getting it from the people they're hiring. So that's a little bit on how recruiters look at these majors. So the major is not, linked to the career directly, or it's certainly not linked the way that most people think. So you can pretty much do anything that you want with any major, as long as you have the skill sets, the career competencies that we discussed. But sometimes you have to educate an employer, in particular your parents. Sometimes you have to educate your parents about how your major will lead to career success. And this is being recorded, so you can go back and capture some of this data. Some of you may want to call up your mom or your dad after this talk and say, hey, I just found out some really interesting information that's different from what you think. Sometimes the general public also has a lot of biases about majors and what you can do with them. So they're not obviously linked. They're not directly linked. So I'll give you an example. Philosophy majors out-earn accounting, business, chemistry, geology, marketing, psychology, and nursing majors 10 years out. Now, I love this data. It's certainly different from, one of my degrees is in philosophy, so I'm, of course, very attracted to it as a piece of information. But it's an example of something that's kind of complex. One of the things that we know about philosophy majors is that they tend to actually be from higher socioeconomic status families. So those families know that a student majoring in undergraduate philosophy is going to be fine, but families that are a little bit more interested in the immediate earnings of somebody may push a student away from philosophy as a major. So we're not sure whether the philosophy itself created the success, or whether we're showing that philosophy is a major that's weighted toward higher socioeconomic status families. But this information is important. Philosophy majors out-earn accounting, business, chemistry, geology, marketing, and psychology, and nursing majors 10 years out. So this is from studies. We just have recently gotten a much more robust set of data on how much people earn based on their major from such things as LinkedIn and PayScale and Indeed. So we have better data than we used to have. So 10 years out, philosophy majors are making 82. They start relatively low, but they keep going. So this is just an interesting thing to look at there. If you want to look back at this URL, you can actually go to this site and read the rest of the data. Now, if you're going to go to graduate school, it doesn't really matter what you major in as an undergrad. So graduate education eclipses undergraduate education. And often people will get graduate degrees that are a little bit more career focused than they might get as a general education undergraduate degree. But if you go to grad school, your undergraduate major becomes virtually irrelevant. So it doesn't matter what you study in graduate school. Here's some data on earnings and income and unemployment by educational attainment. So extremely low unemployment for the doctoral degree and high pay. The professional degree is doctors, lawyers, dentists, and veterinarians. Extremely low unemployment, extremely high pay. If you get a master's degree, low unemployment and high pay. So I think you can see that these degrees kind of eclipse the major as an influence on career outcomes and certainly on income. Okay, so there's an extremely famous study. Liberal arts majors who join large corporations end up earning more than engineers and specialists over time. Now, they don't at first. They start lower than the engineers. And they surpass the engineers at a certain point along their career trajectories. But this is only true. This is a study at AT&T, but there have been similar studies at technology companies. It turns out technology companies report that they're having trouble getting good anthropologists and English majors. So you guys, if you're majoring in anthropology and English, don't be afraid of Google. Don't be afraid of these big startups. Don't be afraid of the most prominent technology companies in the United States. They're looking for you, and they say they're having a hard time recruiting you. Everybody that's an engineer wants to join these types of companies, but anthropology and English majors don't realize the amount of career opportunity that is there. And again, they end up out earning the engineers over time with these degrees. Now, there's an interesting point here. That's only if you join these types of companies. This is not true if you become a teacher or a journalist or a poet. But if you have a liberal arts background and you join a large corporation, it is true. This is a very surprising analysis. The majors of S&P 500 CEOs weighted by the number of people who graduate with those majors to see its relationship to the likelihood that they will end up as a CEO. So economics is in fact a liberal arts. It may not be at the University of Tennessee, but it is in nomenclature. Engineering, number 2, that makes sense. Everybody would go on. Business, number 3, people would say, oh, that makes sense. But look at this, political science. Then number 8, history. Then number 10, English. And then biology, sociology, and psychology. So if you're interested in becoming a CEO, your liberal arts and sciences background will head you there. Now, it's always important to be careful with logic. A implies B does not entail that B implies A. So just the fact that people have these majors who became CEOs doesn't mean that you will increase your chances of becoming a CEO by having these majors. There's a lot of intentionality on this kind of career path. So if you have the intentionality, it doesn't matter so much what you major in. I also like this study, a study of billionaires and by weighting their actual wealth. So engineers have the highest. College dropouts have the second highest, $24 billion median wealth. Business makes sense, but then here we are again, economics. But look at that big surprise, number 5 on the list, median wealth of $20.5 billion, arts. Okay, so these degrees do lead all the way to the top. Then look down below, mathematics is a liberal arts and science. And then of course, science, raw science and primary science is down at the bottom of the list. So we see that these degrees are unlimited in their potential to go up. What about lifetime earnings? What factors beyond the major influence lifetime earnings? So these are all from research projects. I'm going to just briefly pull some of them out and talk about them because they're surprising. One of them is where you live geographically in the United States has a tremendous amount to do with how much you will earn. If you live in San Francisco, you're going to earn more than if you live in a rural area of America. That's true. It doesn't matter what you do. So that's a major thing that influences what you earn. Willingness to relocate is associated with much higher income. So if you'll move around the country, no one's going to care about your major, especially after you have a little bit of experience. But being willing to relocate can be a career breakout for you. So graduate education, we've talked about that. Attractiveness, this is one of my favorite criteria. I really love this criterion because it's got a weird factor, a weird bend to it. If you're good looking, it improves your income. But if you're gorgeous, it reduces your income. And I've been worried about that my whole life. I always try to stay right at the top of good looking and not slip over into gorgeous because I don't want to have that hit on my income. I've wondered about that for years. Is it because truly gorgeous people find someone else to work hard for them? Or do truly gorgeous people make everyone around them uncomfortable and that impinges their career advancement? I'm not sure. That part wasn't covered in these studies. Hours worked. If you work twice as many hours as somebody else, you can make half as much money and still beat them. And then communication skills, that's an invisible soft skill that has a lot to do with your lifetime earnings. So all of these things influence your earnings, not just your major. So what's going on with recent grads, graduating seniors? Are they getting jobs? Are they getting internships? And the answer is they are. So I think you should have some confidence that things are happening. What's up with the economy? So it's we have stagnant high unemployment. That's right at the door. That's going to happen. For those of you who are seniors, you should know that that is going to happen for the next 3 or 4 months. But management and professional hiring is doing relatively well. So management professional hiring is relatively strong. I'll get to in a moment what NACE says about that. We have 3.4% unemployment in management professional, which is, less than half, about half of unemployment overall. The unemployment rate overall is 6.7% last week. So if you're in management professional, the unemployment rate is historically normal. So it's historically normal. Are you about to graduate? There's anecdotal reports of employers rescinding offers. So people thought they were going to be hired, and then the employer calls them up and says, we're going to take a year off. And then even excellent interns from last summer that worked really hard and overcame many challenges to be productive remotely. Some of those people were disappointed not to be offered a permanent hire. Those are true facts. But NACE predicts that spring 2021 hiring will be flat. So they're not talking about it cratering. It'll be about flat is what they think. And part of this is because employers have learned that if they don't feed the front of the funnel, when the economy comes back, they don't have the ranks in the lower management realm where they need them. So even though they may not have enough productivity for you to address, they know the economy is going to come back strong, and they need that bottom rung to be fully populated so that when the economy comes back, they're ready to move with it. And we all learned this from the global financial crisis of 2008. Nobody hired any college graduates, and 2 years later, they were completely slammed because they didn't have people to do the work. Now, here's the 3 things you need to know about getting a job out of college or later in life. It doesn't matter. These are universal truths. You get jobs by talking to people. That's that. When you leave this workshop today, if somebody says, what did you learn in there? I want you to say, you get jobs by talking to people. That's the most important thing I could say to you today. And it's especially true for students in liberal arts and sciences, because when people talk to you, they will like you. They'll be impressed with you. But if they don't talk to you, you're making them look at a dead piece of paper that doesn't have the vibrancy that you possess. So you get jobs by talking to people. Number 2, you need about 100 leads to run a job search. You need a robust bunch of leads so that you can stay busy while you're looking for work. And when we get to the end of this, I'll make a very clear argument about why you should look for work while you're a senior at UT. So if you are a senior, this is super important information. And number 3, you look for a certain type of job. You don't look for openings. So if you find an opening, of course you apply for it, but that's not how you find jobs. You find jobs by looking for a certain type of position, and we'll come back to that some more. It helps if you have a direction. Okay, that's just a way to get started. People will talk to you if you have a direction. If you just say, I don't know what I want, they will not talk to you. But if you know what you want, they will. So my advice is, don't ask yourself, what can I do with a major in blank, psychology, anthropology, history, economics? Ask yourself this question: what do I want to do? That's the question that matters, and it's the only one that matters. So don't create that limitation on yourself, because it's not really there. It's a false limitation. So let's take a look at an example of what I'm talking about. What do these 5 people have in common? Okay, so we got bank officer, stock market analyst, a music therapist, director of a senior citizen center, and a field archaeologist. What do they have in common? Well, since we're talking about liberal arts and sciences majors, you've probably guessed by now that they have a liberal arts and science major. Here's the punchline: they actually all have the same major. So what major is it? What major is that? These are all French Lit majors that graduated in the same year from Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania. About 5 years out, these were the differing careers that they had. Started in the same place, went different directions, and obviously succeeded rather well. So if you will just do this, if you'll think about what you want instead of this thought-limiting idea of what you can do, I want you to say something. I want you to get past this. I don't know, anything, I guess. I've got a good education, so I could do anything. I'm interested in a lot of stuff, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, nobody likes that student. Okay, I'm going to just tell you flat out. I want you to be specific. Okay, so I want to work with people is not specific, because morticians work with people. Okay, that's not getting it done. Okay, so this is one of my favorite examples of a job target. It came from a student in a workshop. This was his dream job. Okay, practical real world applications for chaos theory. I would like to be a chaos theory consultant for government or industry, or maybe even the CIA. I've never heard of this and have no idea if it's even possible, but that's my interest. That's an excellent job target. Now, my friends, sometimes students don't want to make targets because they say it limits them. A target is just a place to start a conversation. In the conversation, if you discover opportunity, you can pivot toward that new opportunity. But more people will talk to you, and everything will go more productively if you'll pick a target. So right now, I want you to take a moment, and in a moment, I'm going to count to 22 and let you do it. I want you to come up with as specific as you can, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 targets. This is not a very good target. A green job, I don't know, something to do with the environment. Not a very good target. But this is a good target. Industrial level recycling of post-consumer electronics, as in container loads or larger, and global trade in such materials. That's a great target. And see down at the bottom, it's okay to mix idealistic goals with practical goals, with service goals, with obvious opportunities that you can pull out of a hat. So I'm actually going to give you 30 seconds to write down a target, and then throw it in the chat box so we can all see what that looks like. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds starting right now. All right, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to keep going, but if you're still working on that target, as soon as you get done with it, throw it in the chat box so we can see what it looks like. So again, the most important thing I'm going to say to you today is you get jobs by talking to people. So now that you have a target, how do you go out there and get busy talking to people? Well, let's talk about the difference between a lead and somebody. Okay, a lead can be all kinds of things. I'll get to that in just a moment. But you want to get all of these leads and convert them into humans that you can interact with. Okay, so your goal is to find a human you can interact with. So you need 100% of the people you know to lead you toward those leads. So these are what leads are: an idea, a rumor, a list of companies, a list of good companies to work for in the state of Georgia, alumni of your college and your high school. Posted openings are, in fact, leads. Handshake, LinkedIn, Indeed, and Career Builder and Monster can connect you with people in different industries. Your family, and even a work site. For example, Sand Hill Road is where all, in Palo Alto, is where all of the venture capital firms are. So those are all leads, okay? So you convert the lead into a person by going to LinkedIn, put in the organization, and finding human beings that work at that organization. So that's how you do that. But don't forget that social networking worked in real life before it went all online and computerized. It really boils down to simply asking this question: who do you know who would know anything about X? Okay. Who do you know who would know anything about accounting jobs in higher education in the Midwest? Who do you know who would know anything about internships at the United Nations? Who do you know who would know anything about production assistant jobs in Hollywood? It doesn't matter what you ask, but this structure will allow you to get from people that don't know to people who do know. Okay, so it's pretty simple, actually. Never forget your informal networks. That's all the people you know, all the people in your family, and all the people in the families of your friends. Okay, and informal networks also allow you to pick up shadowing and site visit opportunities. Okay, so this is a way for you to get more information. And also informal networks include alumni, people that don't even know you, but they're predisposed to talk to you. Okay. So using an idea, you can use LinkedIn to find people who do that. You also can get training in how to use LinkedIn in a job search from UT Career Services. So this is something you can get some follow-up support for. Now, there's kind of, you have a bifurcation here. There's kind of two directions to go when you're contacting a stranger. You want an information out of them, or you want them to instruct you on how to apply to that company. So those are a little bit different. If you ask about information, you actually get to a job faster than if you call up people and say, how do I get employed at your firm? So the top one is better, but they're both approaches. You have to decide with each contact, which way am I going to approach them? So Mary Beth, if you would be so kind, can you read this letter for everybody so that we can hear a different voice for just a moment?
Yes, I can definitely read it. So, dear whoever that may be, your networking connection, a business owner, etc. Greetings. I'm an art student at UT with an interest in visual design. I am seeking experience as an intern in your office this coming summer prior to returning to my senior year at UT. It is my desire to contribute in any capacity with a prominent firm. It is not particularly important to me whether there is a stipend or income. Rather, I am eager to work with some talented designers and participate in the profession. You will see that I have a solid base of skills to contribute. See resume and portfolio, or to go to this website to see my online studio. In addition to identity packages and branding and graphic design, I have done some very detailed modeling and industrial design. I'm familiar with all major design platforms, even architectural. My freehand drawing and rendering skills are sufficient to make immediate contributions to client presentations and projects. I'm good at ideation, both in team and solo settings, but I also can take direction very well to execute others' concepts. I'm serious about my career, and I am sure you will find my skills and professionalism are in line with your high standards. I think it will only take a moment to explore mutual interest. Please email me instructions on how we can connect. I truly appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mary Beth. So that's an example of an emailed broadcast cover letter to a stranger that will advance you in your career development. And it doesn't matter what your major in. This particular person's majoring in art. If you want more meetings, stop asking people for jobs and simply tell them you're not looking for a job with them. Literally in your emails, you say, I'm not looking for a job with your company or firm or organization or university or whatever it is. I'm just interested in your advice. Any advice, ideas, leads, referrals, or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. That's a magic paragraph, my friends, and it will increase the response rate to your queries by a huge factor. So I'm going to invite you to do that. I'm going to skip this slide because there's further instruction on informational interviewing through University of Tennessee Career Services. So if you don't know how to do an informational interview, please reach out to them for instruction on that or handouts and guidance on that. Every single person on the webinar today, you could have what's called, I call these success interviews. You simply identify somebody whose career you admire, and you ask if they would tell you how they got to where they are. Okay, so here's a query. Hey, I have this class assignment to interview someone about the keys to their success in their careers. Can we connect at your earliest convenience to explore this? It should only take a few minutes. We can do it by Skype or Zoom, whatever's best, what works for you. So everybody, right now, I want you to pick somebody. Let's make it real. Pick somebody that you're going to do a success interview with. It's just a standard thing to do for seniors in college. All right. Now, once you have a target, you have to tie your major to that target. Okay. You need to build a narrative that ties your major, shows that it's a logical choice for you to that target. And number two, you need to think, how can I get something on my resume that matches this target? So these are two assignments. If you're taking notes, make sure you get these two things. Once you have a target, you need to build a narrative, a story about how your major supports your ability to perform in that target. And number two, you need something on your resume that matches the target. So let's look at both of those. Okay, so if you're in theater, a theater background would help you win in politics, excel in sales, be a star in education and training, be an engaging doctor, present as an entrepreneur. Think about Steve Jobs introducing new products. He was very famous for how well he could perform on a stage in front of tens of thousands of people, and do pretty much anything else, okay, as well as work in theater. So this is an example of tying your major to these targets and talking about what skills you've developed that will be transferable. Chemistry, what could you do with that? Well, you could go into technical sales. You could become a teacher in any science area, start a business, go into an MBA program, learn how to do art preservation, as well as prepare for med school or work in a chem or life sciences lab. Okay, so these are just some ideas about how these things can be aligned with multiple targets. What about STEM and technology people? If you are good at technology and quantitative issues, you still need to prove that you can communicate and work on a team. So if that's part of your education that you got from liberal arts areas, even if you're a techie or a quant person, that's certainly something you need to bring up and feature, because communication and teamwork skills are ranked number 2 and number 3 on the NACE survey. Now, I want to bring up this because it's important. Sometimes people misperceive the keys to long-term success in a field. Okay, I'm just going to pick on accounting for just a moment. Entry-level accounting is about basic proficiency in arithmetic, not even math, just arithmetic, and the ability to follow rules. Okay, but senior level accounting, you have to interpret laws and regulations. So if you have a background in philosophy or English or anywhere where you had to do a lot of analysis, social sciences, then at a certain level, the skill set changes that leads to success. The most successful accountants are not bean counters. They're people who think deeply about how to interpret the words in published regulations. Here's what Mark Cuban has to say about this. He's obviously a billionaire that owns some kind of sports team in Texas. I apologize, I'm not a sports guy, but I know that. Here's what he said recently about this. I personally think there's going to be a greater demand in 10 years for liberal arts majors than there were for programming majors and maybe even engineering. When the data is all being spit out for you, options are being spit out for you, you need a different perspective in order to have a different view of that data. In particular, experts in philosophy or foreign languages will ultimately command the most interest from employers in the next decade. So smart people know the direction of these things, okay? So here's more on tying your major to your career ideas. if you don't mind, Mary Beth, let's trade these off. If you'll read the bulleted quote here, I'll do the next one. You can do the one after that.
That sounds good. All right. So I majored in Spanish and minored in applied physics because I know I'm going to medical school. I'm from Texas, so the Spanish will help me serve patients better. And I chose physics because I knew I would get plenty of life sciences in med school.
Okay, perfect. Tie that major to your career ideas. I majored in computer engineering and I picked up a minor in business because I want to be able to advance into management.
I'm considering a double major in political science and communications. I want to work in politics, and this will give me both a theoretical and applied perspective, especially in the areas of campaigns and elections.
I chose to major in cultural anthropology because it fits so well with my interest in human resources. I'm getting trained in a social science, how to do investigations, how to create and use both quantitative and qualitative data. I'm developing an understanding of systems, especially human systems. I'd be qualified for many different entry-level HR assignments, from staffing to employee relations to training. Within a year of being hired, I intend to begin an executive MBA program, which will allow me to advance in HR while I continue to work full-time for you. And this is my favorite one of all, Mary Beth. It's yours.
All right. I'm going to major in financial economics and minor in dance. Ooh, fun. In financial economics, I am attracted to finance, accounting, all types of quantitative analytics and metrics, business modeling, strategy, stuff like that. I like dance because it gives me such a different experience, including exposure to work with students with very different majors and interests. In dance, I'm learning to work on a team. I'm learning about other cultures, how to communicate with people who are not technical at all. And it stimulates my creativity, even in economics.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mary Beth. So I need all of you to start building this narrative, this paragraph that ties your education to your career ideas so that people can see how they're linked for you in the real world. Oh, I forgot. Here's one more. I'll take this one. I majored in classics, focusing on ancient Greek and Latin languages and cultures, because I wanted to understand where our modern European American civilization came from. And I wanted to learn how to think, write, formulate an argument, and defend my ideas verbally. I added classes in African history and comparative religion to broaden my understanding. I think this makes a very solid platform from which to launch a career or go to law school or some other grad school direction. So classics do lead to career success. I ran into a guy on a plane who worked in a hedge fund, and he got a PhD in classics. Oh, I asked him, you got a PhD in classics and now you work in a hedge fund? He said, yeah. I said, do you miss or regret getting the PhD? He said, absolutely not. It was the highlight of my intellectual life. I said, well, why'd you go into a hedge fund? He said, listen really carefully, $500,000 a year. I love that guy. Now, the other thing I need you to do is think about what your resume topper could be that will help tie your background to your career target. Okay, so here's some things to know about. Micro internships are new. And by the way, Mary Beth can help you with all of this kind of stuff. Please use the Career Center to bridge this workshop today and your ultimate goals. You can also pick up a resume topper by doing some volunteer work or pro bono work that's not even paid, could even be informal. And so any kind of thing that you might consider a portfolio item, which could be a shadowing experience. So micro internships are new. They're short-term paid professional assignments that are similar to those given to new hires or professional interns. They're 5 to 40 hours of work that can occur any time of the year. Okay, so micro internships. Parker Dewey is one of the sources for micro internships. And down on the left bottom, you'll see another company called Inside Sherpa. Parker Dewey does not hold listings that are unpaid. So all of those listings are paid. And Mary Beth can guide you into other sources to find these short-term experiences that will give you a topper for your resume. Shadowing is something that you can do any time of the year, all 365 days. Basically, it means, can you get someone to take you to work and show you around? That's shadowing. Okay, so formalized shadowing programs might last 2 or 3 days, sometimes longer. But even in one afternoon, you can create a resume topper that will show focus and really advance you toward your goal. When people hear how your major is tied to the goal and they see a resume topper that matches your target, they're interested in you. This really, 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 really works. So here's an example. This is one afternoon. Mountain Zephyrs Commercial Real Estate, site review. It's a shadowing afternoon. Toured top Denver commercial real estate brokerage. Learned of economic development services available through the brokerage and through allied Colorado state agencies. All state agencies have economic development people. Provided feedback on a marketing campaign and advertising piece focusing on high net worth portfolio investors and family investment offices to obviously to sell real estate to those people. Attended a pitch meeting for affiliation with a new sales side broker. Attended negotiation session for $35 million suburban mall property. So if you've never experienced this, if you dress well, people like to take you to meetings. So a friend of mine hired a guy once, and he was an intern. He was a young person, and she said to him, wear your suit, go to these meetings, sit at the side, and don't say anything. He was just a prop to go to these meetings because he looked good and he wore a suit well. So he got a lot of exposure, even though he had no duties at all. You can also use classes or projects that you do for a class as resume toppers. And here's an example. In interior design, this is coursework graded. Maybe you didn't even make a good grade. Maybe you made a B, but you can still say sample projects, design 5,000 square foot coffee shop and wine bar to fit an existing open commercial space in Grand Junction, Colorado, including design, interior architecture, tenant improvement, colors, and textures. See the full presentation package at that URL. This person also designed a concept truck stop, including renderings, based on interviews of truck drivers at all 3 major area truck stops, Love's, Pilot, and Truck Stops of America. Devised innovative trucker lounge with napping pods and multiple theater rooms based on professional driver surveys. Okay, you don't even have to do this for class. You can go up to a professor and say, look, if I do a field study, will you review it? And then boom, you can put it on your resume and create a resume topper that matches your target. And you can also use coursework to do this. Let's say you majored in chemistry, but you had some other coursework, maybe it's offered 1 or 2 classes. By using the word coursework, then you can put content from inside a course. It doesn't have to be the name of the course. If you say classes, it needs to be the name of the course. But if you say coursework, it allows you to pull stuff that you've learned in different classes and put it in a table like this. So this is a chemistry major interested in business. So he's got the Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, but then he says coursework also included business analytics, strategy, operations planning, budgeting, HR law, and organizational theory. Okay, so you can use this technique to create focus and have resume toppers that match your goal. Now, what do you do about this if you're a student? You're a student, you're busy. Well, there's 168 hours in a week. And I think you can give up a couple hours a day to work on this. I want you to build a war room mentality. Yes, I'm busy, but between 4 and 6 every day, I'm going to just do job search, trying to catch people at home. Okay, so you're going to reach out to people. You're going to send your emails. They're going to ignore you. You're going to send them again. Do not hesitate to send them again. You can send them up to 3 or 4 times before giving up. Learn how to deal with a 95% failure rate. You send 20 and one person says, here's my advice for you. One person says, call my sister. One person says, this company's hiring. That's pretty normal in this kind of search. So you send 20, you get one, that's a 95% failure rate. But if you'll work on this every day, when the semester is over, you're going to be a very happy camper because you will be one of the people with a job offer before they graduate. So I did an analysis some years ago at the University of Tennessee, right where you are today, sponsored by the Career Services Office. Seniors who looked for work and found work in their senior year earn $8,000 more starting salary than people who graduated first and then started a job search. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do it this way, but for the people who did it this way, the outcome was robustly positive. So I think that's something for you to think about as you think about, well, I could wait and graduate. Well, maybe you should start doing this now. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Beth as the MC, and we're going to take a look at any questions that came up in the chat box. And I'm also curious to see what people put in there as job targets. So most of all, you get jobs by talking to people, and starting now is better than starting next June. Mary Beth, you're back in charge.
Okay. We had someone that in the chat did write in their kind of job target. Can you see that, Don?
Uh, I can, yeah. Travel and beauty, it looks like.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. That's the spa world, is what that is. So that's every major hotel has a spa. Every major resort has a spa. So that's how I would get started at that. And that's all over the world. I mean, you know, if you go to a resort in Fiji, they have a spa. If you go to New York, they have a spa. So I like that idea. I'd pursue that.
Great. If we have any other questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat box. We can wait a second and see if there are any questions.
What can you provide in terms of, and also your office, Mary Beth, in terms of support for liberal arts and sciences students as they're looking at career exploration and getting internships and also getting full-time permanent hires? What kind of support is available through your office?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned Parker Dewey and Inside Sherpa. We do promote some of those resources for students and can definitely help them navigate those resources and find opportunities that fit them. We can help them with the job search in terms of perfecting their resumes and interviewing skills, um, with help with LinkedIn, which is a great place to start for some of that networking, talking about how to find the UT Alumni Network. So students can definitely make appointments with us through Handshake, which is our job and internship platform. Um, and we have a couple of questions come in. I'll read one here. How does the job market look for international students?
Well, I always am honest, even when it hurts me to be honest. The climate for getting a job in the United States after graduation as an international student is tight. There's been a lot of changes in the visa processing. I would go and meet with the international student representative at UT. And I'm out of my comfort zone, Mary Beth. So I'm just going to make a comment, but I'm going to warn everybody: you got to go verify this because this is not my area. You're, you're entitled to 1 year of employment after finishing a bachelor's degree under a thing called OPT, occupational occupational practical training. But don't take my word for it. Go sit down with the international student liaison and get a little more information on that. But it could be hard to get those assignments in the current political climate, which is unusual for America. But if you could get 1 year of training like that, the political climate, A, may change, and B, it will give you a real advantage when you return to your home country, wherever it is, to have had 1 year of employment after your bachelor's degree inside the United States. So I would try it, go for it, but I don't want to create false hopes.
That's right, Don. Thank you. We have a resource called InnerStride, which is a great database which has lots of advice for international students, and lots of resources. And you're exactly right. I would say that it's a great thing to kind of pair appointments with the Center for Career Development with the international student advisors to kind of get that well-rounded advice. We also have a question here. How do we as students get over the hesitancy to network? Sometimes it feels like we're bothering people.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the problem is the term itself. We should stop using the term networking altogether and simply call it talking to people. Because networking sounds like it sounds like a couple things. It sounds like you're going to a cocktail party with a bunch of stodgy old people who wear cologne and lean over you and talk to you like this. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. That's a nightmare. Of course, you don't want to do that. And the other kind of false thing about networking is sometimes people think you're trying to bully somebody into hiring you. Okay, so if you just bother them enough, they'll hire you. And both of those are not the right way to think about it. So if you will use your talking to people not to make someone hire you, but to make someone tell you about a place you could get hired, that's a slightly different approach, and it's the one that's really productive. So instead of saying to somebody in a law firm, how do I get hired at this law firm? You approach them and say, how do I get hired at a law firm? What is your advice for me? How can I best advance my goal of getting hired at a law firm? I want to work at a law firm for 2 or 3 years before going to law school. So that change it's what causes networking to work correctly. I'm going to say it again because it's kind of subtle. You're not trying to make someone hire you. You're trying to have somebody tell you about someone who wants to hire you. Okay, so that little change right there will change how things go for you. And the other thing is, I recently read this in the Wall Street Journal. Job seekers who put at the bottom of their queries, I'm really eager to hear what advice you would have for me. That little comment, I'm really eager to hear what advice you will have for me, cause people to interact with that job seeker. So it's wide open. Their advice may be, stop looking for a job in this area. You're not going to get it. Well, that's useful advice if you really are in the wrong spot. But instead of saying, how do I get a job with you? If you simply say, I'm really eager to hear what advice you have for me. When can we connect? We'll have a much higher response rate. And the more you talk to people, the closer you're getting to your goal. So I would just never use the word networking and simply think about how can I talk to people more? And talking to people does include Skyping. It does include Zooming. It includes telephones. And believe it or not, it even includes a useful exchange of email. All of those are forms of talking to people. So that's how you get a job. And nobody wants to go to a cocktail party and have old people lean over them and smell bad.
Thanks. Do we have any other questions in the chat? You're more than welcome to type them in. I will say, in mentioning the talking to people, in reference to our conversation just a minute ago about international students, I have heard from some different experts that that piece of that personal connection and talking to people can be especially important for international students who are looking to secure opportunities in the US.
And international students have access to more people in the US than they may think at first. First of all, people keep connections forever. So whatever country you're from, all the people in your family all know somebody in the United States, somebody, maybe somebody they worked with 25 years ago, but they know somebody. And so you use that technique to reach out to people in the United States where you actually do have a connection with them. And then secondly, I'll say this, you don't need to know them. The materials that we're talking about here today, broadcast emails, open queries to people you don't know asking for advice. You don't actually have to know them. You just have to be somebody who can send that email 3 or 4 times until somebody says, yes, I will help you.
Absolutely. And additionally, the Center for Career Development and Academic Exploration has events that really can help facilitate meeting new people. So we have Networking at Nealon coming up in February. You can find more information about that in Handshake or on our website, career.utk.edu. And we also have various panels and other types of networking events throughout the semester. But Networking at Nealon is a great opportunity to meet some new people in February.
I want to thank you for sponsoring this, Mary Beth, and for UT Career Services for sponsoring this. I hope that students find it useful. I hope they'll go back and look at certain segments and maybe pursue some of the resources mentioned, and also pursue further help and support. You don't have to do this on your own, but I've established fairly firmly that there's a huge advantage of starting this while you're a student. Everybody, Mary Beth, will talk to students. Everybody loves students. Students are like puppies and kittens. But once you graduate, you will find that people don't return your phone calls at quite the same rate. So if you say, hey, I'm a student at UT, I'm a vol like you, you're going to have a pretty solid response rate. If you just say, hey, I'm another of the 10 million unemployed people in the Southeast, that's not a very impressive platform. So the platform of being a UT scholar is a great platform. So I'm going to encourage students to follow up on this meeting. And I want to thank you again, Mary Beth, for sponsoring it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Don, so much. Given us lots of confidence for the job search and really how to effectively market the liberal arts degree in that search. So we appreciate your time and expertise. And again, this is recorded. So there has been so much great information. So this will be up on our YouTube site soon. Um, and you as an attendee can go back and look through some of Don's slides because I know there's lots of great verbiage in there that I know that I want to use myself. So thank you so much, Don. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye, everybody.